Okay then, in this video we're just going to have a quick look at how we use a paintbrush. In school we've got several different kinds, different shapes. These two are square, different sizes, and then your normal round brushes. Okay, what you're really looking for, I know they all make different strokes, but I know when you guys want to paint small you tend to go for these really tiny little brushes, and they can be good for good detail and control. But what you really want is when you dip your brush in the water that it goes to a really sharp point, and that is what's going to give you the detail and control you need to paint neatly. The flat brushes obviously won't go to a point, they'll go to a nice flat line like that, and they should be nice and sharp, and if you take care of your brushes that's how they should be at all the times. So I'm going to start off with this big fat one. Here's my favourite. Okay, and when we hold a paintbrush it's very similar to we hold a pencil. I'm using my pencil grip. I don't tend to paint with my hand very near the end. There's a nice round fat bit here on your brush, that should be where your hand is, and again it's that light hold like we use with our pencil. When you load up the brush you don't need to dip your whole brush right up to here in the paint. You really only need paint in the tip of that point. So I've mixed up some red here, and you can see I'm just letting that soak into the brush. We're going to look a little bit more about how to use a watercolour palette in a minute. Just making sure there's plenty of paint loaded on my brush. If I was going to paint a very small area I might dry a bit off so I know that it's not too wet. And brushes can be used to make lots of different strokes. But there's one very important thing. Whatever you are doing with your brush, you always pull it from the point backwards. It might be going that way, doesn't matter. My hand is always ahead, pulling the brush away. If I go the other way, can you see how the bristles then all follow the direction of the paintbrush? I always do it like this with my hand. Imagine these are the bristles on the brush. And if I'm going that way, then they just follow behind me and leave a trail of paint. If I push them the other way, the first thing the bristles do is open up and you get a terrible kind of hedgehoggy brush, and that won't give you any control over what you're painting. So if I push, it's hard for me to push. Can you see the bristles are all splaying out and I've got no control over where my brush is going. The brush is that nice pointy teardrop shape for a reason. It's going to leave a trail of paint behind you. And then when you've mastered that, you can make all sorts of marks with your brush. So if I squiggle it, it will go fat thin. I can use it for colouring in little tiny bits. Even though this is a large brush, I can do very detailed little marks with it. If I want to colour a large area with I can flood fill a whole area, which would mean I would sort of have my brush fairly wet. And can you see me sort of stroking and pulling that whole blob of paint until it fills the whole area? I'm using my brush on the side then to get that effect, and that gives me a nice large area. I can make tiny dots, thick, thin lines, anything I want to do, all with just one large brush. When you've finished with your brush, make sure that you give it a really good rinse in the water. Another important thing is my water pot is only filled halfway up. That's all the water I need. As soon as it gets too dirty I'll go and change it, but you don't need it filled right to the brim. Far more chance of it getting knocked over and ruining your work. Washing it nice. I'm stroking my brush on the top of the pot to get any large drips off, and I've got a paper towel here that I can dry my brush gently with. Then I'm ready for a new colour. When you've finished at the end of your painting, please make sure that your wet brushes are stored in a nice point like that, and that you stand them upright in a pot so that they're not resting on their bristles, and then they'll be ready for somebody else to do some beautiful artwork with next time.